It was a quiet Thursday evening when Nora returned to her apartment in Block 9B. The hallway lights flickered as she climbed the narrow stairs, her arms full of groceries. She didn't think much of it, the building was old, and flickering lights were normal here. Her keys jingled as she unlocked the door. Inside, everything felt ordinary. Except the air, slightly colder than usual. Nora placed the grocery bag on the kitchen counter. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. She pulled her hair back and sighed. It had been a long day. She walked to the living room window and noticed something odd. Her curtains were slightly open. She always kept them closed before leaving for work. Maybe I forgot, she whispered to herself. As she reached to close them, she paused. Across the street, in the opposite building, a single window was lit, faint yellow light spilling out from behind the glass. And there, behind the curtain, was a shape. A figure standing still. Watching. Nora blinked. The figure didn't move. She quickly closed her own curtains. The night went on normally. Nora made dinner, scrolled her phone, and watched a few videos before heading to bed. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every few minutes, she'd glance at the window, half expecting to see that shape again. Nothing. Just her own reflection. As she reached to close them, she paused. Across the street, in the opposite building, a single window was lit, faint yellow light spilling out from behind the glass. And there, behind the curtain, was a shape. A figure standing still. Watching. Nora blinked. The figure didn't move. She quickly closed her own curtains. The night went on normally. Nora made dinner, scrolled her phone, and watched a few videos before heading to bed. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every few minutes, she'd glance at the window, half expecting to see that shape again. Nothing. Just her own reflection. At 2:47 a.m., she woke suddenly. A soft tap echoed from somewhere, distant but clear. Her eyes adjusted to the dark. The room was still. She waited. Nothing. Just silence. She turned over, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds. Everything looked normal again. Nora made coffee, turned on the radio, and tried to laugh off her unease. She went to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The opposite window was still lit. Same faint yellow glow. But now, there was something different, a small note taped to the glass from the other side. Too far to read. At 2:47 a.m., she woke suddenly. A soft tap echoed from somewhere, distant but clear. Her eyes adjusted to the dark. The room was still. She waited. Nothing. Just silence. She turned over, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds. Everything looked normal again. Nora made coffee, turned on the radio, and tried to laugh off her unease. She went to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The opposite window was still lit. Same faint yellow glow. But now, there was something different, a small note taped to the glass from the other side. Too far to read. That evening, after work, she came home and saw the same light again. The same window. The note was gone. But the curtain was slightly parted, just enough to see that faint outline again. Still. Motionless. Facing her direction. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. A few days passed. She told herself it was nothing, maybe someone's mannequin, or a lamp, or a trick of light. But on Friday night, something changed. She arrived home to find her own apartment door slightly open. Her heart froze. Slowly, she pushed the door open. Everything seemed in place, couch, kitchen counter, her coffee mug still where she left it. But when she turned toward her bedroom, the window was wide open. Curtains swaying gently. She walked over and looked out. The opposite window was completely dark now. No light. No figure. just her reflection staring back from the glass. Then, faintly, her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. She answered. Silence. Then, a whisper. Don't close the window tonight. The call ended. Nora called the police that night. They checked the hallway, locks, and windows, everything secure. Probably a prank, the officer said. But when she turned to close the door behind them, she noticed something on the floor. A folded piece of paper, tucked under the welcome mat. Inside, she unfolded it with trembling fingers. One sentence, written in neat handwriting. You looked right at me. Her stomach dropped. That night, she didn't sleep. Every creak of the building made her flinch. At one point, she walked into the living room to grab water, and froze. The curtains were open again. She didn't remember touching them. Across the street, that same window glowed again. But this time, there was no figure. Only the faint outline of a chair. Empty. Nora stood still for a long time. Then turned away. Saturday morning. She decided to stay with a friend for the weekend. As she packed, she noticed something strange on her nightstand, a small Polaroid photo. Her bedroom window. Taken from outside. She dropped it instantly, backing away. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. This time, she didn't answer. Instead, she unplugged the lamp, turned off her phone, and left the apartment. 2 days later, when she returned, the apartment smelled faintly of dust and something metallic. On the kitchen counter, another Polaroid waited. This time, it was her sleeping. Her breath caught in her throat. The edges of the photo trembled in her hands. She checked the locks, untouched. Windows, sealed. Then she noticed the mirror above her couch. Someone had written something faintly across it, with a fingertip. Check the window. Nora turned toward the window slowly. The curtains moved slightly, as if something had just slipped behind them. Her hand reached out. Stopped midair. Fade to black. The next morning, sunlight touched the floor of Nora's apartment, soft, cold, unfamiliar. She barely remembered falling asleep. She didn't even recall closing the curtains last night. But now, they were shut tight. And taped across the fabric was another note. Her fingers hesitated before peeling the tape. The paper felt damp, as if someone had held it for a long time. It read. You shouldn't have looked away. Her throat went dry. Nora backed away, eyes darting around the room. Everything looked untouched, furniture in place, dishes where she left them. Except the mirror above the couch, the faint words were gone. She checked the hallway camera app on her phone. The last recording was corrupted, static, gray noise. Timestamp, 3:14 a.m. That afternoon, she called the landlord. He told her the unit across the street, the one she kept seeing the light from, had been empty for 6 months. Nora froze. That's impossible. I saw someone there. Empty, the landlord repeated. No tenants. The owner died last year. After the call, she went to the window and looked across. The curtains there were open now. And taped to the inside of the empty window was something small and white, another note. This one read. Come over. Nora stared for a long moment. Then, before she could think it through, she grabbed her coat, locked her apartment, and crossed the street. The old building smelled like damp paint and dust. She climbed the narrow stairs, heart pounding with every step. She stopped at the door marked 9B, the same number as her own apartment. Her breath trembled as she knocked once. No answer. She pushed gently. The door creaked open. Inside, empty space. Walls bare. Floor covered with a thin layer of dust. There was a chair by the window. The same chair she had seen across from her apartment. And on it, a small black and white photo. She stepped closer. It was a picture of her, standing at her own window, looking across. Her knees weakened. She turned to leave, but froze. On the inside of this apartment door, something was scratched deep into the wood. One sentence. Don't let them in. Nora bolted downstairs, stumbling over the uneven steps. She rushed outside, breathing hard, scanning every window of her own building. For the first time, her apartment looked wrong. The curtains in her own window were moving, slowly, like someone was standing just behind them. She ran across the road and up to her floor. When she reached her door, it was locked, but she could hear faint movement inside. She shouted her own name, her voice shaking. The sound stopped. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door and pushed it open. The apartment looked untouched, exactly as she left it. But the photo she dropped days ago was gone. And then, from the bedroom, came the quiet sound of someone breathing. She slowly turned the corner. The curtains were closed. Someone was standing in front of them. Same height as her. Same hair. Same clothes. Nora's voice broke. Who are you? The figure tilted its head, slightly, then smiled. It lifted its hand, pressing a note against the window. You invited me. Nora stumbled back toward the hallway. Her reflection in the mirror flickered, one frame off, out of sync. When she looked again, the reflection wasn't moving at all. It was still staring at the window.